All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first Q&A webinar of 2022. My name is Rachel Gleitman, and I'm an educational implementation specialist here at SAM Labs, and I'm here with Libo Valencia. Welcome, Libo.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for
Great.
having me.
Of course. Libo is a mathematics educator in New York with 13 years of experience. He's a passionate teacher who strongly believes that understanding mathematics can help all students develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills that can be utilized outside of the classroom. He is known for his use of different technologies to engage his students and bring mathematic concepts to life. He currently teaches at Horace Greeley High School and Chappaqua Cooney Lehman College and Mercy College. And as a mathematics educator, he has taught a wide range of subjects from remedial algebra classes to upper level calculus. Libo holds a Bachelor of Arts in Mathematics, a Master in Pure Mathematics, and a Master's in Science in Educational Leadership. Please give a warm welcome to Libo. Thank you, Libo, for joining.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. So tell us a little bit about your background as an educator and your experience in education.
So I have been teaching for the past 13 years, right at high school. All my license is a secondary license, but all my experience has been at the high school level. Right after I finished my first master's in pure math, I had an opportunity to start teaching at the college level. So I started doing that, and I'm enjoying it. When I first started working on my master's, I felt that at some point later on, when I was closer to retirement, I was going to work at the college level, but it happened a lot sooner than I expected. And it's been a very positive and enriching experience.
That's wonderful. So why mathematics? What led you into that section of education?
So I was born, I'm from Colombia. I was born and raised in Colombia. I lived in Colombia until I was about 15 years old. And during my time in Colombia, I did well as a student in all my classes, but whenever I was in math class, I felt that I was like a fish in water. I always felt like math was kind of like my superpower. It came very natural to me. I love the consistency of mathematics, how everything relates, how everything makes sense. And I was also very good at whenever somebody needed help with math, they will come to me, and it came very natural. So that passion and that connection to mathematics actually develop even more when we moved to the States, and I had to learn English. But whenever I was in math class, I felt again like I was home. I felt like a fish in water. So that connection with I knew that when I was in math classes that were in English, and I didn't really understand the language, but I understood the math. I was like, okay, now I know this is what I want to do for a living. So I feel that math was always my superpower. And then as I started to grow up and finish high school and then go to college and whatnot, that passion only got stronger and stronger to the point where I wanted to share with others.
Wow. Well, you mentioned a couple things that I picked up on as far as, math always being that comfort zone for you where you felt like you could excel. And clearly you have exceeded in education and not only teaching it, but also experiencing different programs yourself and degrees in mathematics. Through that time in that mathematics realm, which skills do you wish you had been given or learned that you now feel that are essential for your students? Something that maybe you reflected back on the past, and now that you definitely teach as an educator, that you kind of wish that you had earlier on.
I feel that's a great question. I feel that as a student, growing up, and I think that I was taught in a very traditional way, which leads a lot of people to believe that mathematics, there's only one way to understand it, and you either get it or you don't get it. And that's contributes to the feeling of oh, I'm a math person or I'm not a math person. I also feel that we always a lot of times as a student, I got to explore mathematics in a single path. Okay, this is the path that I'm going to show you. This is how I want you to do it on a test. And now I realize that more than often as an educator, there are multiple ways to approach mathematics or to approach a mathematics problem. And I feel that regardless of how I feel, if I can expose my students to multiple ways of approaching a question, it benefits everybody. So I feel like, reflecting back, I wish that like my experience was more like an experience where I got to explore like different paths. Even at the college level, I had professors who will like get upset, like, okay, like that's not the way the way I taught you. So that's still like some of our students are still experiencing that today. Which is
Okay.
not like, I'm not trying to say that learning traditionally was a bad thing. Like, it worked for me. Like, I feel that I've experienced some level of success with like math and education. But I think that if we're able to explore like different paths and show people like, okay, like you can approach this question in a different way, and it's okay as long as we get to arrive to the solution, that's fine. Another thing that comes to mind is the idea of like speed and calculations. Like, oh, if you're able to perform something quickly in your mind, then you're good at math. And that's not always the case. Like, I now feel as an educator, and as a parent, that there's nothing wrong with taking the time to understand something, or to like better understanding something, or to like understand something deeper. So I feel like those two things: number one, like being able to approach questions like in different ways, would it be like extremely beneficial, and also like knowing and understanding from early on that speed has nothing to do with like people being like a math person or being good at math, because like even like that's passed on like from very early on. When you
Hmm.
think that, oh my god, I'm not good at math because like here's Libo who's able to like do the calculation super fast, I'm not able to do it super fast, so I must not be good at math. So that's not the case.
Well, it sounds like you've opened the door to so much creativity and processing and computational thinking when you are approaching math from so many different angles versus a one and done. Um, you have incorporated a lot of creativity in your lessons, which I know we're going to get to hear about in a little bit. But I know you've also incorporated technology into your lessons and into your planning. What is your process for when you're planning out your lessons and your classes for incorporating technology?
So one thing that I like to mention is I love using technology in my classroom. I've always been open to like using technology. I'm not, I always tell people that I'm not married to a specific technology or a specific program. I like to use different tools, different programs. Like in the area of math, I like to use decimals. I like to use GeoGebra. I like to use Delta Math. So like the more platform graspable math, the more platforms that my students get exposed to, I feel the better. So with that in mind, when I'm planning a lesson, I always always have a plan B, right? Because technology is never
Yeah.
100% reliable. Like the
Right.
day you're doing absurd, right, and you're doing something on Desmos, like the server might be down, or like the computer, like
Right.
something might be wrong. So always like have a plan B. But I do feel that, as teachers, I'm pretty comfortable with technology, but I don't have all the answers. Whenever I'm doing something, there's been multiple times where students say, Mr. Valencia, like, how do I do this? And I honestly have no idea. So I'm honest. I'm like, I don't know. Let's try to figure it out. And in my experience, what I learned is that students are like the best tech supporter you could ever have,
Mm.
because they will like the technology comes like so natural to them. It's at their fingertips. They will like, oh wait, let's try this, and they will like try to like figure it out and help one another. So when I'm thinking about like, of course, I'm gonna try the technology myself first to make sure that it does what I want it to do. I also don't like to use technology as like, oh my God, I'm using this technology because it's fancy, because like it has
Mhm.
to have a purpose in the lesson. It has to have
Yeah,
bring some
absolutely.
rigor to the mathematics. And so like if it has those checks, like, okay, I can use it to do this instead of doing a worksheet with 10 examples. By exploring this applet, the students can do like 100 examples, right? And they're enjoying
Mhm.
it and they're like playing with it. So I feel that using the technology, like exploring it myself, sometimes trying it out with a colleague, like, oh, would you mind like checking this activity that I have? Let's see if it makes sense. And then you try it yourself. But also, whenever you're using technology, also like have a plan B, because the technology, like regardless of what technology you're using, is never 100% reliable.
Right.
Something could go wrong. And the other thing is like, don't be afraid, regardless, because we all have different levels of like comfort, right, with technology. So
Right.
regardless of
Right.
your comfort level, like we all teaching like the same students. So I feel that don't be afraid to try something that you're not 100% sure that, okay, like I don't know how this is gonna play out, because your students, like if your students will have your back, right? They will like say, Mr. Valencia, let's try to figure this out. They will, and then like once that happens, it creates like a culture of collaboration. It shows them that,
Mhm.
okay, Mr. Valencia is human. He doesn't have all the answers, and that's okay. We all have a growth mindset.
Absolutely. So speak a little bit more into that. I understand as far as incorporating technology at this point, you're adding something new. There's that understanding of the culture in your classroom where you are confident to be able to try something and take a risk. And your students are too. When you first started out incorporating technology, establishing that culture of taking a risk, what are some kind of reflections on, looking back on that? Would you do things different as far as establishing that culture? Because quite honestly, I think sometimes that's the biggest hurdle, is starting.
Right. Oh, definitely, definitely. My grandpa used to say like starting something is like doing half of it. Like once you start, that's like half the battle. So
Yeah.
I will recommend, or like in my experience, starting small. Like I will start by let's explore this like GeoGebra activity in class, right? And I will tell the students, let's have a device. Oh, you don't have a device? It's okay. Work with Rachel. Let's try to figure this. So start small, so they get that like, okay, this is comfortable. We could do this, and like don't attach it to a grade. Like when you're starting to like do this tech activities, don't attach it to the grade, because then the students are not thinking about the activity or the learning. They're like, oh my God, like what if I'm not able to do this? What if it crashes? What if so that start small and then make it like low stakes, right? Like, okay, this is not going to be graded, or it's going to be graded for completion. Like as long as I see you engage and working on it, it's fine. You're going to get the points. And then it starts to develop into doing something more. Another thing that is critical is not only like using the technology, but giving students some room where they get to like choose something about the technology. Okay, like let's do this and let's implement something that you're into. Let's study, I don't know, like whatever we're studying. Let's study functions, but let's apply it to something that they like or something that they're interested on. Because then that way it's not only that, okay, like Mr. Valencia is telling us to do this, but let's see how we can utilize this technology with something that I'm interested in. So that way the conversation, like it goes beyond the classroom. Whatever you're teaching, whether you're a math teacher, a STEM teacher, whatever you're teaching, we are teaching like children, right? We're teaching kids. So what we're teaching goes way beyond the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, you spoke on that too when you talked about when you were approaching math from different angles and the comfort of trying new things and taking risk in technology. And in your opinion, how does the use of technology in the classroom develop those 21st century skills in students as they're going about your lessons?
So like I said, yes, I do feel that I'm more than like I'm teaching my students way more than mathematics, right? Like I'm a math, my title is like Mr. Valencia, the math teacher, but I'm teaching them, I'm hoping that I'm teaching them way more than mathematics. And I feel that technology is an integral part of like everyone's life right now, especially our students. The technology is at their fingertips, like 24, I don't know, you can see it with their phones, right? Like they have their phones 24/7, and there is like so much going on their phones that I can never compete. Like I can never entertain you, the way you get entertained with your phone. So I feel that by leveraging the technology and to teach them like collaboration skills and things that they're gonna need like in the real world. And when I say the real world, I mean like when they go out to get a job, right? Like look at what we're doing. Like we are in a Zoom meeting, right? That other people can see like worldwide, that is gonna be saved and streamed later on, and then like anybody can have access to it. So I feel that this shouldn't be something that we're running away from, because this is the world that they'll get to experience when they're contributing members of society and whatnot. So I feel that by them doing it in the classroom, it makes more sense and is related to like what they see on a daily basis and some of the skills that they're gonna need later on, regardless of like what they decide to do on in college. They're gonna have to know how to collaborate, how to use the technology, how to do research. So I feel that's why I also feel that it's so important for them to like experience different tools, because by doing so they can say, okay, like I like this tool to do this and this works better for me to do this. I shouldn't be the one to decide like, okay, this is the tool that we're all going to use because it's the
Yeah.
best. Because like even if I thought that it was the best tool for me, like for Rachel, my student, she might feel like, okay, like I like this thing about this tool, but I like this tool better to do whatever. So I feel that using technology is something that our students are going to need, and trying to like run away from it's like a kind of like a disservice for our students.
Mm, absolutely. I mean, we have to embrace it at this point, to really take what we have and moving into our lessons and seeing how this will shape our learning. You mentioned some other tools and methodologies that you use to engage your students, but what can you tell us more about that, of how you not only use that to engage your students, but just it help the overall joy in your classroom? I know students are excited to just be back in person, but what does some of the technology usage in your classroom look for that overall joy?
So one of my things is like math play, right? Like hashtag math play. I started doing like math play with I have two daughters. I have a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old. My 7-year-old listens to me. The 2-year-old does whatever she wants. So my 7-year-old is like, she likes school and she likes to learn and she likes math. So I started like math playing with her, right? To teach her whatever I wanted to teach her. And then I like, it was like, she was so engaged when we were playing with shapes and playing with numbers. So I started to think like, oh my God, like I wish I could take this idea of math play and bring it into the high school level. So like, I was hesitant at the beginning. I was like, oh my God, like, well, they're not my daughter, right? These are high school students. These are teenagers that can be like, oh my God, Mr. Valencia, this is silly. This is straight up like silly. I don't know why we're doing this. This is like, but like, I decided to give it a try and like, teach them like what they needed to learn while like we're doing math play, and it has been great. I actually have a couple of examples that I wanted to show you, if that's okay.
Would love to see them.
Let me open this. All right, so let me see if I can share this. Okay, can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this is an example from like one of my geometry classes where we were studying. This was like, we were remote at the time, I think. So we were studying like right triangles, and my students looked like they needed a break from Zoom. I needed a break from Zoom. So I said, all right, let's take a couple of minutes. Let's take 10 minutes. Go outside, go walk around your house, take a picture of something that you think is a right triangle. Come back. We're going to upload it to GeoGebra and then prove or disprove that is actually a right triangle. So Rachel, I was scared because like I was there, like they went away, and I was like, oh Jesus, like what if they don't come back? Like what if I'm sitting here?
Just lost your whole class.
Exactly, like 5 minutes passed by, and the students started coming in. Not only did it start coming in, but they were like excited. They're like, oh, I took a picture of this. Oh, I took a picture of this. And then I didn't give them a lot of instructions into how to prove that it was a right triangle. So some students like use slope, some students use the Pythagorean theorem, some students like measure the angles. So like the technology allowed them to approach the question like, okay, like I'm going to use the angles, I'm going to use slope, I'm going to use Pythagorean theorem. So it was just like a fun activity that we did, and it was amazing. So after like I got it to work in geometry, I was like, oh my God, like this actually works. So I can use it now with like older classes. So then I went, like I was thinking, oh my God, like how do I bring this into pre-cal, to my pre-cal class? So I saw like, I'm sure you've seen this at some point, the Pringles Ringo. So I saw this and I told my students like in advance, all right, you're going to need Pringles for one of the lessons. And I emailed the parents. I was like, please make sure they have Pringles and whatnot. So they got Pringles. And then I had them build the circle, right, of Pringles. Then once again, we uploaded the picture to GeoGebra, and then the idea, the goal was for them to write like sort of like the equation of best fit of a circle for that ring. I've done this activity remote. I've done this activity in the classroom, and it's amazing. What I recommend is like have extra Pringles if you do it in the classroom, because the students will eat it. So because of that,
especially like those high schoolers.
Yeah, oh my God, they don't stop. They will like eat them first, and like, oh, what were we supposed to do with the Pringles? So it's fun, like things like this where they're like using what they know and they're like applying it to something. What I've learned is that it's extremely the students are extremely engaged. They buy in. They're like, oh my God, look, there has to be collaboration. When I did this activity in the classroom, they're like trying to figure out like a strategy. No, we need to make the base like thicker. Let's use Libo because he has steady hands, or let's do Rachel because Rachel has like patience to do the things. So it creates collaboration, it creates conversation. And what I also noticed is that the conversation went on, because then all the teachers will say like, oh, the students were talking about like Pringles. What did you guys do with Pringles in math? And then like, so like it goes beyond the classroom. Now they're doing it like outside on their own time. Another example that comes to mind is that we were doing an optimization unit with my college students. So of course we do the problems and they do an example, but then like using an applet in GeoGebra, once again, I show them like the relation of like the 2-dimension that they're doing with the volume, with the slope of the tangent line, and how this changes. So like the students saw this and they were like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then we actually got to build, like using a piece of like printing paper, create like something that has the maximum possible volume. So it was fun. Like I put emojis, but I promise you they're all smiling. They're all happy. They had a great time with this. And the activity was like, okay, like did they do it? And I gave them the points. So like it wasn't so much like, oh my God, I'm gonna go and measure the thing that you made, but they're like applying the thing, they're applying the concept, they're applying the optimization to something that is meaningful. They got to decorate the box that they made. So it was really nice. Another example that I did recently is my students were learning about like polar coordinates. So of course you could do a worksheet where they get to practice, okay, like the distance of whatever and the angle. So instead we play a game of Battleship. So it was Rachel. They were like so engaged. They went outside and they're like playing one another and they're like timing themselves. Like, all right, like how long does it take for you to do like 10 targets? And so like it was fun. And what I've noticed is like when I started doing things like this in the classroom, I was afraid because again, like I learned traditionally. So I like a part of me was like, oh my God, like they're not gonna do 50 questions because these are like strong students that want to do the practice. So I'm like, oh my God, like are they gonna be okay not doing 50 practice questions? But it turns out that doing this is just as effective and they're having fun. Another, like the last project that comes to mind is we recently did an art project via Desmos. So in this project, we had just finished the section of like on conics where they learn about circles, parabolas, ellipses, hyperbolas. So I said, all right, now we're gonna take your favorite Encanto character and you're gonna create it using like conic sections and any domain and range restrictions. Rachel, that was it. That's what I told them. I didn't say you have to have like this many. I said like make sure you have at least one of each, like one parabola, one hyperbola, one ellipse, and the stuff that the students come out with, like it blows my mind. I was so amazed by the quality of their work, the things that they put together. You can really, oh, actually, you could see some of this in here. Some students did like 90 equations. I would have given them credit for like 10 equations, but they like, it becomes like something meaningful. It goes beyond like, all right, like I'm just learning this, but now I'm going to apply it. And not only I'm going to apply it, but I'm going to apply it to my favorite character. And then like, I know that Rachel is doing Bruno, so I'm going to do Bruno. And Rachel, let me see your Bruno. I think mine looks better. So it was really, really fun. Also, like once the students do this, I'm on Twitter. So like I'm posting this on Twitter and I'm showing like everybody in school. So the students are like, they see that, oh my God, like Mr. Valencia just posted my project, or like he's talking about this, and then like other people are seeing it. So it's very positive. I do feel that, you know, allowing this opportunity, facilitating these opportunities for math play at the secondary level, elementary level, can only be beneficial for like students learning and also changing that negative perception of like, oh my God, math is boring, or like, what do I have? Like, why do we learn mathematics? I feel with like 100% that math could be like everyone's favorite class. Like if we teach it like a little differently, like everyone will like fall in love with mathematics because they will see the beauty, the consistency, all the things that it connects to. But if we're only teaching it one way, where it's like, okay, like it's this way. If you don't get it, then you're not a math person. Of course, kids are gonna have that mentality of like, okay, no, I don't get it. I'm not good at math. But if we allow them to play and explore and use different approaches, it can really be beneficial.
Well, I mean, you highlighted so many things I want to like recap on. And one of the things that I picked up on is, you know, you're talking about high school and college students. And so often when you say math play, we think of the younger students. I'm an elementary educator by trade. And that is what we often think with the youngers. Let's get blocks, let's get manipulatives. But showing this example, how hands-on learning is imperative for all ages, and just how it brought so much excitement and joy to your students. And just love seeing the variety of tools and collaboration that you use in your classroom. Like you said, not one way is this way, or not just Desmos, not just this, but the collaboration of tools. And that's something that we certainly embody here at SAM Labs, is using what you have in the classroom and equipping students to apply and to create something meaningful beyond the classroom. It's not just about the skill they learn there, but how they're going to use it in the real world. Just love seeing the projects. And I think the drawings are definitely my favorite.
Yeah. Oh, and the domain and range restrictions that they came up with. Another thing that is worth mentioning is that every time I say like math play at the high school level, some people, even like some teachers, will have like a negative thing, like, oh, okay, like we're going to do math play today. So it's just like a pretty thing we're going to take a picture of. But that is not the case. Like facilitating math play doesn't mean that the math that they're learning is less rigorous. Like in order for students to come up with some of these, they have to know their concepts like inside out. Not only that, but like they have to know about domain and range restrictions. I had some examples. I don't know if you can see it here. I think it was on this one with Mirabel, where they use like the inverse of sine or the inverse of cosine to come up with the hair. So like they have to use the mathematics, and there is like a purpose to it. And it's definitely not something like, oh, we're just gonna do math play today so we could take a picture of it, and it's something pretty, and it's something that okay we do once. And no, like this can like math play can be as rigorous as like your most rigorous lesson. So that's something I like to mention, because sometimes when I say like math play, when people like are thinking of something else, like, oh, it's just gonna be something pretty that we do or
cute,
something
yeah,
to keep them busy. That is not the case.
yeah, absolutely. I love that. I wrote it down. Just because it's math play doesn't mean it's less rigorous.
Exactly.
You need to put that on a sticker or something, or possibly in your book. So I
Yes.
hear you've been slated to write a book. That can you tell us a little bit more about that and some of your initiatives outside of the classroom to support education?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be completely honest. I've been teaching for 13 years, but the first 10 years of my career, Rachel, I was like running away from, so I avoided social media. Oh, what's like I thought of social media like, okay, this is how teachers get in trouble and lose their jobs and appear in the news and whatnot. So I stayed away from like social media for like a long time. Now, about 3 years ago, I started like I opened a Twitter account and I started like following people and whatnot. And like it has evolved into like, and like I started sharing things that I did in the classroom. Oh, I did this, or like if I saw something that someone did, I was like, oh, let me do this, and then apply it, and then thank that person. Like, oh, I got to use like Rachel's idea. This is how it worked for me. So I noticed that like I've grown so much, and there's like I've connected with so many amazing people, educators like Sam Blas, like Joachim, like so many amazing people that have like enriched my teaching, and like by doing so, like it has benefited my students, because I feel that every year I strive to be a better teacher, and like because of like some of the things that I've done in Twitter or that I've learned via Twitter, I've become like like a better version of myself like every year. So like I mentioned that because it was like through Twitter that I got an opportunity to present at the Global Math Department. I recently presented for like a GeoGebra conference, and it's all because of like the connection that I made through Twitter. And like one day I got a message like during our last Christmas break, I got a message from Mr. Brian Aspinall from Codebreaker. He said like, oh, I watch your video for this. I think you should like write a book. And I was like, oh my God, like I consider I'm more like a math person, right? Not a writer. But like it all like happened like fast. And he was like, oh, I think you have something great in here with like math play and whatnot. So like long story short, like I signed a contract. So I'm writing a book on math play. It's hopefully coming out later this year. And my intention or like the goal of the book is to like inspire other people, like to show them that you can facilitate math play, that facilitating math play is not going to require you to like write a completely new lesson, that there are opportunities for all of us from elementary level to like secondary level to facilitate math play in the classroom. And it can not only like benefit the students learning, but also help change that negative perception of mathematics.
Absolutely. Wow. Libo, I can't wait to get my hands on that book. I know you'll let us know when it's headed out to print. You have captured so many great concepts and displayed for us kind of an in look into your classroom. We're just so incredibly thankful for you to show how hands-on learning and creativity and just the engagement really brought these concepts that you're teaching in your classroom to life, and how your students are applying them in real world concepts. We're extremely grateful to have you today. For those of you joining us in person and those of you who are joining us via online watching the video, thank you so much for coming today. And please join us next time on our next webinar series. And so have a great day. Thank you so much. Thank you, Libo.
Thank you.